greatest and clearest priority, in that I will use all the structures which are provided, the intergovernmental structures, to engage the counties, to see what we can do, capacity build them, to fill the gaps. I was also thinking about even what is happening with the health sector, the model where the government, the national government has the health promoters. Can we have agri promoters working in the counties from national government? So those are areas which will be, as it has been suggested by Honorable Kosin, we can have a summit where we can dwell on these issues with the agriculture committees of the House, so that we move forward, because without extension and delivery of services, we are just doing the margins. We are not doing very, very much. We need support to our farmers. Thank you very much.
You are aware that formulation of agricultural policy, even where it's devolved, is still vested in you. So you have to formulate proper policies and cascade them down to the counties. Karanja?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Just on a follow-up on what Kosin was saying on devolution in agriculture. There are so many state agencies and regional developments which are duplicating what is being done at the county level. My question is, what concrete plans are you going to put in place to avoid that duplicity of functions and wastage? Secondly, unemployment is a huge concern in this country. What policies are you intending to bring to the ministry to encourage the young Kenyans to venture into agricultural activity as a form of employment and engagement in terms of to reduce the unemployment aspect in the country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Honorable Karanja. The duplication is because one of the biggest challenges in every sector is coordination. If you don't have good coordination, the duplication will occur. For instance, I'm sure, and if I'm approved, the sector which I'm going to, the ministry, has about 36 parastatals. Very many of them doing various things. But are they coordinated? Are they tuned to the priorities of the sector? I think that is my challenge as the incoming CS, if I am approved, to make sure that they are tuned to what is the priorities of the sector. Because I think some of them are not, they are doing their mandate and they are semi-autonomous, but we need to work as a team, to work towards a certain goal. So apart from coordinating with counties, there are also inter-ministerial coordination which is required to make sure that those parastatals and agencies are working towards the laid down priorities. Employment. Agriculture is the biggest sector in our economy. I'm quite aware of that. And without agriculture absorbing some of our youth, it will be a very big task for the economy to do so. So we will be, if I'm approved in this by this committee, I will endeavor to make sure that the youth are taken care of, especially by when we are implementing all the interventions which are identified under the bottom-up transition, the better. Be it in leather, be it in dairy, be it in the crops like rice and everything, the value chains, all those value chains, we will get the nodes where the youth have to come in to create jobs for them and to make sure that they are meaningful jobs where they can be engaged right from the grassroots all the way. So the value chains approach is the way to go, and I will promote it and make it very clear that we are even monitoring how the youth are getting whether the youth are getting engaged. Thank you.
Honorable Mary Mercy.
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, let me take
Chair,
Naisula first.
Oh, okay.
I skipped you.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mary.
Thank you, Speaker. Dr. Karanja, listening to you and the comments that most of my colleagues have raised about agriculture being devolved, and even you saying that the extension services at the counties are dead, it is because the Ministry of Agriculture at the national level, you're also involving yourself in devolved matters than doing your work, which should mostly be policy, and collaborating with the counties to see that those policies are implemented and those extension services are working. Because I do not understand why the county government are providing seeds, they are doing, they are providing all that to the farmers, but fertilizer, you keep it at Kilimo. Is it a cash cow for the minister, for the PS, for the cartels there? Why are you leaving fertilizer at the national level instead of dealing with matters policy, which is your main core mandate? And when you talk about functions being devolved, resources should then follow those functions so that then the county governments are able to work and not the money remaining here in the capital in Nairobi. The second issue is the issue of livestock farming. We talk about coffee sector reforms, tea sector reforms, even pyrethrum and cotton have a board. Livestock we do not have in this country. People who wake up every morning thinking and implementing issues to do with livestock. Botswana is one of the best countries in livestock farming, implemented by Kenyans. They're the ones who went to do livestock issues in Botswana. So I want to know what you're going to do to see to it that livestock farming is taken seriously. Instead of taxing Kenyans, make money through livestock farming. Lastly, on the livestock bill 2024, what will you do as a cabinet secretary to communicate properly what it is all about, because we are already seeing a lot of things flying right, left and center? What strategies will you put in place to ensure you communicate to the public efficiently on the livestock bill 2024 and taking their views in? Thank you.
Yes, nominee.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Honorable Raisuda. The issue about, yes, interfering with the mandate of the national government and the intergovernmental, I would like to say that if I'm nominated, approved by this committee, I'm a firm believer in devolution. As I said earlier, if you want sustainable development of agriculture, the counties have to take their role seriously, and they have to work. They have to work. There is no other way. I'm a development economist, and I know that if you don't have structure, institutional framework to support you to do a sustainable development, it will never work. So the counties have to take their mandate, they have to take their roles, give those services. The national government have to take its role of the ministry where I'm going, if I am approved, the role of policy, the role of regulatory and also research. Those are the mandates which are to the national government. But the counties have to take that role. And I will do whatever will be in my power to make sure that those delineation and that it becomes very clear. In terms of even fertilizer, that's why I said eventually, gradually, the way to go is to make sure that you decentralize. The procurement should not be done centrally. It should be done with agro dealers. Those are business people who can be able to do procurement, and they do it as part of their business. The government can come in and subsidize and give the vouchers. So I am, as I indicated, and I would like to repeat again, I am a firm believer in that issue about sustainable development through counties. Livestock. Yes, livestock is a very critical area. Is one of the critical areas, because if I'm approved, I'll have two state departments: agriculture and livestock. And livestock has a great potential in terms of being able to the livelihoods, especially in ASAL areas. And Honorable Member Isuda is to say that I'm lucky that when I'm coming in, if I come in, there is a livestock bill which has been published, and the livestock policy, which has been published. So the livestock bill is trying to cure the lacuna which was there, in that we did not have agencies which are promoting livestock matters in the country. So it will create, for instance, try to regulate what is happening in breeding, animal feeds, which members know that there are a lot of issues with animal feeds, quality and others. Create a livestock marketing board, which will be promoting livestock. A research organization dedicated to livestock, although it is between Caro. And institutes, I was surprised to learn that some of the institutes in livestock, like Haiti, which we know, don't have legal status. They are created by, so the livestock bill is trying to do that. And there are issues which are coming through, I know, misinformation, which you would be dealing with, so that when it comes for the necessary hearings and a public hearing, those issues are dealt with. So I think I will give it a lot of priority, the livestock bill, and so that by the time, maybe by next year, we will have some of these institutions in place. Thank you.
Marina.
Thank you, Chairman. My question to the nominee. The country has suffered recurrent drought, flooding, as occasioned by climate change. In the process, we've lost a lot of livestock through starvation, millions of livestock. We've also lost crops through flooding. Some are washed away. Even the crops that manage to survive do not perform well because of too much water. My question is, what mitigation measures can you put in place to reduce the loss of livestock during future droughts? What compensation measures or strategies would you be able to put in place? Because we know that we have livestock insurance, at least areas, livestock farmers can be compensated. What about crops, farmers that lose crops? What are your thoughts? Secondly, in the agricultural sector, we have so many youths who are trained, degrees in agriculture, even PhD in agriculture, extension officer, trained but jobless, so many of them. I don't know if you're aware of that. And we need to be deliberate in employment creation. If you are successful and you become the Minister of Agriculture, what deliberate measures are you going to put in place to ensure that you deliberately placing resources in programs that will create opportunities for these young people? Thank you.
Let's take another one. Daud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. To the nominee, he has mentioned he has been in the coffee sector in the task force. What I would want to put to him is the coffee sector is in turmoil. Prices and theft at the coffee factories are rampant. We need to probably develop new varieties and value addition for coffee. What would be your position on that? Secondly, the Kenya Kwanza government, I believe, they talked about guaranteed minimum returns. And I've seen you have worked with the Kilimo Biashara as well. What would be your take on guaranteed minimum returns for all our products? Lastly, there is a bill I'm co-sponsoring, the livestock theft bill, which is in Parliament. Apparently, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock has got what is coming up, but instead of them bringing it to Parliament, they say that has to stop before we bring ours. So if you do get confirmed, would you be willing even to be assisted by members of Parliament bringing bills and not stopping bills because the ministry is going to bring When it is going to bring, we do not know. So those are the few things I would want you to answer.
Go ahead, Dr. Karanja.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Mary, the issue about livestock and climate change. Climate change is a definite threat to agriculture and many other sectors, including energy and others. And it has to be dealt with. Measures have to be taken. And in particular, when you go to livestock, especially where it is practiced in the arid and semi-arid areas, that is where climate change is becoming a big issue due to the persistent droughts. And we have to invest in mitigation and adaptation measures in those areas. For instance, if you go to the northeast counties, Isiolo, Wajir, and others, you realize that over time, the pastoralists have started to realize that pasture conservation is one of the areas which they can invest in. They used to graze and then go. But through interventions, through various programs, you can now see hay being sold in those areas. So some of these mitigation measures are going to be there, especially to change their lifestyle, so that they adopt measures like pasture conservation. And if approved, I am going to promote programs which you do the adaptation especially for livestock sector. For crops, it's also the same. We need measures which varieties which are resistant or drought tolerant, varieties which are higher temperature, can withstand higher temperatures. So that, as the docket of research is within my mandate, if approved, I will also emphasize on that. We have also to take, for instance, the Kenya Kwanza agenda of planting trees. That is one area where we need to emphasize, because trees, agroforestry and others, is one of the measures which we can be able to mitigate the effects of the climate change. Then in agriculture, I'll also be working closely, if I'm approved, with my counterparts in irrigation. Our agriculture is rain-fed. It is prone to that calamity which occurs. Issue about the youth. I indicated earlier that yes, I'm quite aware of this particular challenge of jobless youth in the country, in the rural areas and everywhere else. And if I'm approved, my undertaking is that, whatever we are doing in all the value chains, the issue about the youth, women, PWDs, people living with disabilities, will be taken care of. Not just taken care of, but we will go out of our way to make sure that and monitor clearly that we are taking care of the youth, the women, and people with disability. Honorable Dawood, the coffee industry, as you have rightly indicated, I started my career there as an economist. I have also served in the task force and other. Yes, I know there are issues, very major issues in the coffee industry, including legislative one, the bill, the policy, which are still pending. This will be low-hanging fruits. I will be able to handle them if I'm approved, so that we move forward. New varieties and thefts. I work with collaboration with, especially for theft, I work with the collaboration with the interior, so that we are able to see how best we can handle the coffee thefts. Because the coffee thefts are usually promoted and gotten mainly from maybe insider jobs or people who have licenses who can be able to dispose of the coffee. Because you cannot buy coffee. Where do you take it? It has to be that you have a license, you can be able to dispose. So it is something which, with working together with the Ministry of Interior, we will be able to handle. So I will approach it from the policy point of view, having the policy, and I'm also aware that there is a coffee bill which is before Parliament or Senate. I'm here to take the position very well. So I'll go ahead and do whatever it takes to make sure that that is done. Minimum guaranteed returns for farmers. This is the campaign and Kenya Kwanza in the plan. It needs to be looked into because it involves a lot of, from an economic point of view, it involves a lot of resources. In terms of if you want to guarantee the coffee, tea, you want to guarantee maize, you want. So this one I would say that if I am approved, I will set up the necessary structures to make sure that I get good professional advice on this particular issue and the best way to go forward. But I know it is very important to our farmers. It was in the plan, the Kenya Kwanza plan, so we have to move forward, but cautiously so that we are not, given our financial situation, that we don't overcommit. The livestock and the bills, I would like to handle it from where you, Honorable Dawood, you said, if I'm approved as a cabinet secretary, working with the National Assembly and Senate and members of the honorable members, whenever a bill, you don't have to oppose a bill because it is coming from another quarter. If it is something which is good, it is bringing something of value on the table, the best approach will be you look and you consult and you do the consultation so that you agree on a common position. You improve on what you have. If it is a bill brought by a private member's motion, you see what is bringing on the table. If the ministry has something else to add, you add. So it is a collaborative effort. I would approach it that way.
Ferdinand.
Thank you very much. Dr. Karanja, you have promised, and please go by that promise, that if you are actually approved by this House, then of course you're going to put some workable and various interventions in the system to be able to move forward as a sector, agricultural sector. One, I want to ask you, what are you going to do? We have failed. There are some projects you actually failed. Kalana Gulalu is one of them that this House or that of the Parliament actually put in a lot of efforts, but it is failed. I want you to tell me what you are going to do. Because you are saying the moment we approve you, you're going to get some of the things that have failed. Two, out here, and I think it's a common knowledge, there's a lot of land fragmentation, the cutting land, reducing the workable land. Agricultural land is actually being subdivided. I'm afraid 20 years to come, maybe you and I won't be there. 20 years to come, there'll be no land for cultivation in this country. And I think I had a chance to go to some of the places like Denmark, where land is actually put aside. So what are you going to do about that to be able to at least stop this fragmentation of the land, subdividing? Of course, if I have like 4 children, each one of them must have a piece of land. Lastly and not least, the most important thing is that agriculture. You have promised, and I hope you will live up to your promise. There's irrigation. Irrigation in this country, I don't know who did this, is misplaced. It's in blue economy. What do you irrigate in blue economy? Blue economy is water. Are you going to have an effort to bring it to agriculture? Because irrigation is actually supposed to be irrigating the products, crops, but not the blue economy. Are you going to again given by your
and sanitation?
Let's get Dr. to see your view, because irrigation was in agriculture. It was moved from agriculture. So that's what I'm saying.
To grab it back.
Yeah, I want it back. I want to. It has to come back, because what do you irrigate in water? No, of course he can. Through him, he can bring a motion, whatever it is, if he is approved. Yeah. to bring into agriculture, because what you know, it is misplaced. Thank you.
Morugara.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And Dr. Karanja, there is a lot of theory in agriculture, especially to encourage youngsters to study agriculture and economics, with such catchphrases like agriculture is the backbone of the economy of the country. That is, in agriculture and in economics, it's the biggest employer and should be sustained, etc., etc. When you look at the level of unemployment in the country today, why would it be at such high level if it were the greatest employer? It means the policies regarding agriculture vis-a-vis the young people we are educating do not match. Number two, it means the youngsters do not take agriculture to be any form of gainful employment. It's dirty, it doesn't have good income, and all that. What policies would you put in place to ensure that we have a mindset change to the youngsters to know that agriculture can actually be that employer which is income generating? And if we were to do this, then the next question is, we as a country presided over the killing of some of our best cash crops in the country away from coffee and tea, including cotton. Cotton was doing very well in arid and semi-arid areas. But we elected to have Mutumba coming in, as a result of which cotton almost got dissipated. Sunflower, another cash crop, which was doing very well in those areas. We watched as we brought in edible oil from other countries and the crop went down. What policies would you put in place to ensure that cotton, sunflower are revived as our cash crops, which would actually reverse the trend of importation of either very expensive clothes from Turkey, China and everywhere else, or the second-hand clothes which are flocking in from all over the world, and also edible oils that are coming from the Asian countries, while actually we can sustain that ourselves. And not lastly, we have the other food cash crops which we grow. The crops are food, but basically if you check their mode of production, they are cash crops. And I'll give you examples. One of them is gadam sorghum, which is supposed to be consumed by the brewers. It's also a food crop. Another one is the mung beans, the dengu in eastern Kenya. It's supposed to be a food crop, but it is produced as a cash crop by the farmers. The cartels we were talking about are now able to go around it, import those crops from the neighboring countries, as a result of which the prices become extremely miserable and to some extent throw away. What policies would you put in place to ensure that those crops are sustained in the country and their prices are improved so that farmers are encouraged to continually grow these crops for economic purposes? Finally, livestock. Livestock is supposed to be one of the most lucrative agricultural endeavors or enterprises we undertake, including export. But it surprises us that even the quotas we are given, leave alone Europe, which refuses to accept our beef on the basis that, as the Deputy Speaker put it, we use drugs to treat these animals, which drugs are banned in their countries. So when they do their tests, they say this meat does not qualify for our consumption. But the Asian countries are more than willing to accept our beef products. How come, as a country, we are not able to meet our quotas when actually we are capable of even overdoing it because of the areas that are arid and semi-arid? What policies would you put in place to ensure that livestock is also sustained along those lines?
Yes, Dr. Karanja, that's quite a mouthful.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Can you respond to all those very important issues from
Yes.
Ferdinand to Morugara?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. From Ferdinand, thank you, Ferdinand, for your Honorable Ferdinand, for your question on the field projects. The Garana Kuraru, I know this has been in the works, has been there for some time. Coming from where I come from, as I indicated, is that if I am approved, I have worked in programs and projects. And one of the areas where you do is to do an evaluation, clear evaluation with economic analysis. If it is not working, it is not working. If it is working, then you can see what are the lessons learned and you go ahead. So if I am approved, one of the areas which I would do without throwing away the baby with the bathwater is to do a candid evaluation of that program, of that project. If it is not working, then we get advisory, we move away, and we see how the best to get out or to continue. So and that is just an example of Guraru Kuraru. We will do for others, which we feel that they are not delivering, they are not getting value for money. Subdivision of land. I know this is beyond agriculture alone, because yes, agriculture is the biggest user of land in the country. And if I am approved, what I will do is I will engage the sector of land, because we are supposed to have a land use policy, clear land use policy, which delineates areas where you can do agriculture, areas where you can do housing, areas where you can do other things, so that we are able to delineate those areas. So this is a collaborative effort with the sector of land, because I'm sure and honorable members are aware, we are losing a sizable number, a sizable proportion of agricultural land to real estate in Kiambu and other areas, and this are causing a lot of concern. Even in other counties, we are doing the same. So it is an area where we engage the sector of lands to come up with clearly with. I know there is a land use policy, but we need to revisit it and see how we can implement it. Irrigation, as it has been indicated, this is in the water sector, and this, I'm sure, is an issue which our appointing authority will assist to that, and I don't want to comment more than that. Honorable Murungalu, thank you for your question.
Point of order.
Yeah.
Yes, Ferdinand.
Daktari, you actually are very knowledgeable from what you have said. Don't tell us, don't throw the question of irrigation is something that you go to tell this committee what you're going to do. Don't tell us that somebody else holds they're talking of the same thing. We have said, and I've said it very clearly, irrigation is supposed to irrigate crops, and somebody misplaced it in water. It's as simple as that. So what are you going to do about it?
Thank you, Honorable Ferdinand. Yes, I agree. Because irrigation, when you do it, especially the small one, not the big dams, which you have hydros in them, the irrigation we do for small scale is agriculture, actually, most of it. And logically, it is supposed to be in agriculture, so that you manage, because even the technical management of the irrigation scheme, yeah, it is agriculture. The water part is just making sure that the water is there. So that is why I'm saying, because coming in as a CS, I would love to have irrigation as one of the dockets, but definitely I need to be guided.
It is not your duty to assign departments.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
No, but also he uses the water.
Yes.
He doesn't develop the water.
If I may continue, Honorable
go on.
Honorable Murunga thank you for your questions. The issue about the youth and agriculture. Yes, it is quite something which, because you realize that agriculture has been left to the old people. One of the studies which was done by one of the institutes indicated that, for instance, the average age of a coffee farmer is 62 years. So very aged people. And the issue is about the youth might not want to go into production per se. They might not want to go to production, but what they are interested in is issues to do with the value chain, along the value chain. For instance, in agro-processing, in making sure that, for instance, if there is milk, they add value, they can make yogurt, they can do the ghee. So, as indicated earlier, some of the key value chains which has been highlighted and has been prioritized, we will try as much as possible to integrate the issue about the youth. There is also a program, I'm informed, if I come in and I'll try to scale it up, trying to inculcate, to teach youth about agriculture, right from the secondary schools and primary schools, so that they have the right mindset when they are coming up. Policies, edible oils and imports. As I indicated earlier, we are having a big issue about food imports. We are becoming a country of food imports. Edible oils. I was checking the statistics, and when you look at petroleum and other, edible oils is featuring very highly in terms of imports. So we need, and it's one of the priorities in the BETA, which has been prioritized, especially sunflower. So we will accelerate that program. If I am approved, we will accelerate that program to make sure that the farmers have the necessary planting materials for sunflower. They have the necessary planting materials for other edible oils, canola and others. And the challenge of also making sure that not only they have the planting materials, but also they have the technology to get the oil out of the sunflower. Because it's one thing to plant the sunflower, it's another thing to get the oil out of the sunflower. Cash crop, gadam, sorghum, dengu. Sustainability in the country. Yes, these are particularly good cash crops. Some of them are like dengu, gadam, sorghum. They are a bit drought tolerant, and they are grown in areas where, like Lower Eastern, other form of Lower Eastern, Upper Eastern, and other Kitui and other Machakos and others. They are good, and they are actually very helpful crop, because in this era of climate change, they are the ones which are going to be the ones which are going to help the farmers to overcome, adapt to some of this. And if necessary, if I'm approved, if there is any exports or any cartels which are trying to curtail this, we will do the necessary legal, maybe the rules and the registration, the lower rules, to make sure that if there is anything to be curtailed, to control that market, so that they remain in the country, they are available for the country. Like I know gadam sorghum is used for brewing, so they should be able to get access to that and dengu, so that it's not exported. So I'll rely on, as the CS, the mandate I'm given, if I'm approved, by the various registration, like the crop acts, to make sure that this happens. Yes, livestock is a major one. And we are surprising, honorable members, is that despite the potential, I am believed that we are not able to even meet the demand for non-stringent market in Middle East and other areas, even for sheep and goats. For cattle, they are saying our cattle are, sometimes the numbers are too small, the weight of the animals are too small. I'm given an example where a market was found in Indonesia. They wanted a various number of cattle, but when the technical team went to the field, they could hardly get 10% or 20% of that. Reason? They wanted a cattle of a certain weight, which we did not have. Our weight was maybe half what was required in the market. The same with sheep and goats, and I'm told that is a very lucrative market, especially for Middle East. So one of the areas we are, if I'm approved, is to look at our breeds. The Borana, the Sahaiwas, the bigger ones, so that we are able to distribute this to the farmers so that they are able to have cattle and breeds which can go to that market. There is also the issue about feedlots, making sure that we have community feedlots where they can fatten those animals, they can make them go to the weight which is required. So such kind of interventions. And I'm happy to note that livestock and lead meat is one of the priority value chains according to the BETA. So we'll be able to handle that. Thank you.
Owen Bayer.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to pose the following question to the nominee. I know he has taken time to explain something on edible oils, which is actually part of my question, and you allow me, it's not repetitive, but from another angle, Honorable Speaker. I would like to say that we spent around 160 billion on edible oils, imports. The agricultural budget is around 84.9 billion, thereabout. And a lot of money is actually used there. AFA, the Agricultural Food Authority, has a department on edible oils. But the work that goes in there is probably very limited. Probably they are managing more the imports than actually growing the edible crops in this country. And that's why we get into this. And what do they get? They make around 2 billion shillings a year for the tax that is imposed on edible oil. And therefore, we are not solving the problem on edible oils. In the past, the nominee, crops such as coconut, cashew nuts, groundnuts, crops which I'm very passionate about because the region I come from actually grows these issues, but they have been neglected completely, such that coconut and cashew nuts are crops that are continue to decline. We have old boughs, we have the old tall coconut trees, and the productivity is shrinking every day, and yet we continue to import. We have the solution. The coast of Kenya and part of the eastern part can grow this macadamia and simsim, sunflower, all those crops. And it made the people of the coast very rich, and the country got enough revenue. But they've been on the decline. And yet AFA, the department, the area of edible crops, is not doing much. Tell me, what kind of reforms will you bring to reduce the imports on edible oil, both legislative and policy, and also increase the production of cashew nuts and coconut so that we can cut down on the budget on oil crops? Secondly, Honorable Speaker, ADC is Agricultural Development Corporation, which is supposed to help the agriculture department. And one of the things that ADC did was to have enough land set aside. I had the question on now we are moving to settlement, and but ADC has swathes of land. But what has happened for many years, there has not been any protection on this. They've been divided, they've been given out. I know even the ADC in Malindi, they have a huge farm in Malindi, but now they're actually renting their own farm because people grabbed it. Now the land they own, they are actually paying rent on. In terms of policy and legislation, what are you going to do to protect ADC and actually spur the productivity of ADC to ensure that as a country we still anchor ourselves in agriculture, and from agriculture to manufacturing and to jobs? I thank you.
Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The nominee has come out as very brave because there's one answer he gave. I was very impressed when you said that you're willing to even advise in correcting the mess in state departments in the ministry. When you said that you feel that irrigation is misplaced and you will fight for it, that means you're a brave man. Now, I want to just point out two things. One which was raised by Honorable Naisula on the issue of Botswana, which actually exports 95% of its beef products to countries like Norway and the United Arab Emirates. And what she said is what I want to confirm, that actually they have a Botswana Meat Commission which was borrowed heavily and fashioned after Kenya Meat Commission. But years later, while theirs is thriving, Kenya's KMC is actually now in the hands of the military. So I don't know, what would you do? Because as a brave person, you must be able to make very serious and tough decisions to bring back that livestock sector to what it should be. Now, secondly, the other issue is the issue of corruption in the ministry. From NCPB and those state departments within the ministry, there's a lot of there's rampant corruption. In fact, I will tell you that at one time, just recently, Kenyans were treated to a circus of the sale of funny product in the name of fertilizer, and the parliament was actually seized of the matter and tried to handle it. Now, there's a gentleman who was my neighbor. This is a real story. And he had a piece of land, 5 acres. He was actually selling it. We were trying to get a buyer for him. Then he got appointed to the Kenya Sugar Board. Within a few months, he now started buying off all the neighbors and stopped selling his land. There is a lot of money that gets lost in our state departments, especially the agricultural one. Now, I've seen that you are worth 214 million. You are going into this sector. All those cartels are there, and they are willing to make you a billionaire with the next 3 years. Are you going to be able to resist, Bwana Nominee? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Dr. Karanja.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Will they make you a billionaire, or you are a billionaire already?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, Honorable Owen Bayer, for your question about this issue about edible oils. Yes, this is a classical case of we need to do import substitution. We cannot continue spending our good money importing things we can do in this country. As I indicated earlier, the edible oils is one of the key priorities in BETA, and if approved, I have no other alternative but to work day and night to make sure that we reduce the import bill, especially on edible oils, be it on sunflower, coconut, and cashew nuts. I know especially in the coastal zone, these are very good crops, which has been there, naturally growing there. What may be needed is to review the value chains. Their value chains, make sure that farmers are getting the necessary technologies and inputs, and also the machinery and technology to get the oil and others. Because edible oils also has another offshoot. Because, for instance, if you do sunflower, you do canola, when you squeeze the oil, what remains is what is used in animal feeds. And this is what we are importing. So it has a double, it will help us in those areas that we get the oil, and also we support, especially our animal feeds industry. So it is quite a good industry where we need to work on. And if approved, I work day and night, I can assure you, to make sure that we reduce this import bill. It has been there. I know even in Western Kenya there is also the issue about palm oil, which is coming up, where we can get the varieties to plant there. So it's something which is an open potential.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
just a quick supplementary, because I hear what the nominee is saying, especially in terms of edible oils and the value chain around the production and growth and production of edible oils. And I'm just wondering, because the nominee lives in this country, and he knows what has happened to the finance bill of this year. Part of the proposals that were in the finance bill sought to do exactly what you are saying, to protect the local industry in terms of local farmers who are growing sunflower, canola, and the other inputs for edible oils. And we sought to increase excise and import duty on imported edible oils so that we protect these local farmers and grow our own local industry for the production of edible oils to do exactly what you are saying. Now, my question is, considering that Kenyans have told us they do not want us to increase import duty or excise duty on imported products, what other measures would you take to, or what non-tariff interventions would you have to ensure that we protect these local farmers, grow our own local industries, and at the same time do what Kenyans are asking us, not to increase access on the imported products? Or when you speak about import substitution, my understanding of import substitution, and I'm certain being a development economist, you know import substitution will mean that we produce locally. Are there innovative ways that you'd work on, or would you now try to convince Kenyans that import substitution will entail levying some taxes on imported finished products to protect our local industries and create jobs for our young people in this country? As you said, our young people are interested in jobs around the value addition in agriculture, not necessarily in production of agricultural products. But there are also many young Kenyans who are in agricultural production, and a few who have interest in value addition. But what would you tell Kenyans in terms of import substitution and tax on imports?
Thank you for the intervention, Majority Leader. I think this is sometimes, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there comes a time a nation has to choose what you have to do. I agree, there's a sentiment that we don't have to tax more, but when you are putting barriers in order for you to create an enabling environment for our farmers to be able to do this, and also create jobs. Because if we edible oils, as I have said, you get apart from production, you get to have technology to mill these edible oils, get the oil, purify the oil. That creates a lot of jobs. It creates a lot of jobs in livestock sector and other areas. So I would go both ways. Try to, if I'm approved, try to get interventions which you help the farmers do whatever they are supposed to do. For instance, subsidizing some of the inputs so that they are able to grow more and develop the necessary technologies and adopt the necessary technologies. But I would also like to convince Kenyans that this is something which we need to do. Get those taxes, create some barriers so that our industry, especially for oil, these imports, substitution, we get it right, because we should not be every import is a job exported. So we need also to have, we cannot have our cake and eat it at the same time.
Speaker, before the nominee moves to my next question on ADC, yes. Don't you think that the problem why everybody wants to import edible oil is because there are cartels that make a lot of money? That, you know, if you create an enabling environment to generate edible oil locally, you are actually killing other people's businesses. Companies, you know, we used to have a lot, the Shah companies that used to do a lot of manufacturing of edible oil in the country. We have a company in Mombasa. You know, they're closing down because there are cartels in this country that are hell-bent to ensure that they continue to import edible oil because it's big money. Okay, so how are you going to, I know you've come out very strong. I would like your commitment on how you're also going to fight cartels in the edible oil sector.
Yes, Junet, what's your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, we need to contextualize this issue of palm oil properly. I wanted to ask the nominee that as we speak now, close to 90% of Kenyans use products of palm oil, imported palm oil, as cooking oil. 90% as we speak now. Now, we can only get rid of it when we develop the other products, the sunflower and what is the other thing? Canola and other things. But now, until that is grown and developed, You can't stop, because if you levy taxes on the palm oil now because of, you're saying, quote-unquote cartels, then cooking oil will become very expensive, because the sunflower and the canola are not ready now to take over. So you can only develop that other side when it is ready, is when now you switch from the palm oil to that. But if you say they are cartels, those are stories in the street.
Order. Answer the questions. This is not a debate between members.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, honorable members, Jeanette and Owen, for your interventions. I think there is a
question pending on ADC.
Yes.
And the dismantling cartels.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think this shows you the robustness of this debate, that we need to deal with the two sides. And I agree 100% with what Honorable Jeanette is saying, that we need, in terms of timing, we need to, when we are phasing out the imports, we are coming in with strongly on the locally. So that is a matter of timing. That is a matter of timing, but we need to yeah. Thank you. So I think that's one issue which I would definitely, if I'm approved, I would look at it and see the switching, the timing. If I go back to Honorable Baya, there was issue about ADC. ADC used to be a very prime parastatal government agency, where we used to get even the planting materials. We used to get, for instance, even livestock, Mutara Ranch, the rest. But it has gone down. I don't know, I will have to, when I get, if I get approval, I have to make sure that I visit them, I know what is aiding them. And the issue is, what role should they play in this dispensation which we are in? For instance, we know that we need a lot of planting materials, we need a lot of, like we are talking about livestock breeds, the Sahiwas, the Borans. What role can they play in that, aligning themselves to that priority in the sector? So that is, when I come in, if I'm approved, is some of the areas which I would like to pursue quickly, because I am sure they have the capacity. They need only to go through what they need to do. Honorable Baya, thank you for your question. And one of them is oh yeah, most of them I'm answered. Yes. Whether I can resist, whether they will be able to make me a billionaire. I come, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, I come from a point of, one of my clear areas which I am saying is non-negotiable is that is issues to do with accountability and being able to stand for what is public good. And I think that, to me, will be uncompromised. I'll pray to God that I will not vacate that principle. Yeah, because I need divine intervention. I know it's not easy.
You should start with your will to resist before God helps you. Yes.
I'm wondering, because he's saying he's going to pray. Are you going to pray so that you are not a billionaire? Because the question was, are you going to resist those cartels?
You will pray to God to give him courage to resist.
Yeah, Mr.
Yes, Mule.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Karanja, I have no doubt in my mind you know exactly what entails in the entire agriculture and livestock sector. And as members of parliament, we are here to hear you and your suitability. And I know we are live to the entire public, and quite a number of Kenyans are watching. And I want to get a feedback after this from the Mamamboga, the tea farmer, the coffee farmer, the sugar farmer, whereby you tell them on their face, on the actual policies you are going to do. And I'll give you two scenarios. The first scenario is that we have a crisis at the tea sector, whereby 32 billion shillings worth of tea is unsold at the Mombasa auction, whereby it will enter and hamper the payouts to the farmers at the tea sector. As we speak, the mama mboga at the market right now, who expect to get tomatoes from the local farmers and come and resell to make little money, the entire market as we speak today, Korokosho, Kibera, Kamukunji, any market, is flooded with tomatoes. It's flooded with skumawiki. It's flooded with onions. It's flooded with cabbage from within the country and our neighbors. How will you handle the imports from our local neighbors to safeguard our local farmers who have gone a serious challenge to produce, and a mama mboga who is waiting for the same produce at Korogosho market, yet a truck has come from a neighboring country, I don't want to name any, and has already delivered the same produce, reducing the price of tomatoes from 3,000 as we speak this morning. This is a reality. 3,500 per crate to 700 shillings. The farmer is losing because he can't get his input on the produce, and the mama mboga cannot get an extra coin as expected. The coffee industry, the farmers at this right time, most of them are picking up coffee, taking them to the factories. They are not very sure. They have spent substantial amount of money to produce that coffee. They are not very sure of the market of their coffee if they are selling it. As a cabinet secretary for nominee for agriculture, if, and I use the word if carefully, approved, what did you tell that Kenyan? Don't tell us, we have seen your CV, Mama Boga has not seen your CV, we know your expertise from the document. Tell the real Kenyan down at the grassroots, what will you do as a minister for agriculture to protect them and add chain value for their produce and give them a hope? Thank you.
Russell, just filter the, that was a long speech with one question. So, yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Dr. Karanja, if you will be approved, you will run the largest ministry in government. That contributes almost 25–26% to the Kenyan GDP. That is how important that ministry is. Agriculture has a lot of distortion around the world. In America, they say 20% of the population feeds the other 80%. While in Kenya, they say that 20% is the land that is actually productive, while 80% is not useless, but a land that is there. Looking at your CV, you have either been a lead consultant or a lead economist in the programs called DRIVE, KSAP, Ending Drought Emergencies and Resilient Program, Carlo Ilri, Global Environmental Facility, among many others, all dealing in two areas, livestock and the ASAL. These programs are supported by either World Bank or the European Union. But on the reverse, when you look at, have those regions really benefited? Tell us one program that is successful to say that, yes, it has succeeded. Honorable colleagues have talked about irrigation. Year in, year out, for now, 2 governments, we are talking about Galana Kulalu. And yet, Mwea irrigation, Moroni, all those were done almost before independence or just around independence. My question to you, 1, is Kenya really throwing away good money by engaging with World Bank and European Union, where when they give us 10 shillings, we are told you only give 3 shillings, because that is a matching fund, that we're actually throwing away good money, yet it can do other things. Secondly, the issue of livestock. For those of us who come from the pastoralist communities, it is our main economy. But the problem in agriculture, even you, as you tried to explain, you kept on talking about dairy. But the cattle that we keep, or the camels, they're actually not dairy, it's beef. And for beef production, if you don't talk about breeding, traceability, disease control, then there is no market. Those from outside will never buy from you. That is why they will tell you that if a heifer is not 350 kilograms, then they cannot buy. So for that reason, my second question is, if you are confirmed, just tell us what is it that you can do in livestock. Because livestock, in 25% of agriculture, livestock actually contributes almost 9%. And that is not a mean figure. Finally, when you were nominated, there were people who said, that one is ours. We live in Kenya where there are 42 different communities, many nationalities, but one nation. Are you going to serve all Kenyans, irrespective of where they come from? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Dr.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and thank you, honorable members. Honorable Mure, the issue about the crisis in the sector. If I'm approved, I want to guarantee you that and the mama boga, the tea farmer, for instance, the issue about this piling up of tea in Mombasa. I will be the next plane to Mombasa to see what is happening and to do, if I have the powers within the law, I will do it the next day. Because there is no need of having tea piling up when farmers are expecting the tea to be sold. So I can guarantee that if I'm approved, some of these crises needs only to be handled. You go there and handle them as they, because it doesn't make any economic sense for you to have tea, which is piling up 32 billion. Farmers are expecting money. So that will be handled. Tomatoes, flooding from the East African community. This is an East African community issue. There might be issues to do with tariffs and what we need to do. We intergovernmental, interministerial with our colleagues in the East African community docket to see what we can do, because sometimes you don't want also to escalate with our neighbors. It doesn't. So I also look at that, and I can assure you that Mama Boga, that we need to do. Yes, we also need to look at ourselves. Why is tomatoes from our neighboring countries coming at a cheaper cost? Address what I would call the root cause of the problem. Is it our inputs which are high, Is it our methods is it our varieties which are not good? Because I'm not sure our neighboring countries are subsidizing their tomatoes. So there must be something they are doing, we are not doing. And we need to look at that and address it so that in a sustainable way, because even if we put the barriers and then we are producing at 3,000 or 2,000, and they are producing at 2,000, always the market will always shift towards them. So we need also to look at that. Coffee industry. I will also look at the coffee farmer and tell them, we will finalize whatever reform. If I am approved, it's one of the areas which I have a comparative advantage, having worked in the coffee industry for long, and I know what is required to be done. The reforms which are remaining should be done so that the coffee farmer enjoys the whatever is supposed to be enjoyed. Then, Honorable Lasso, on the issue about interventions by our development partners and what they have been able to do. Yes, our development partners are important. On the brief which I got is that the sector, the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development has a portfolio of almost 150 billion in terms of these projects. And they are good, they cover a wide area of intervention.
His question was, are foreign funded programs in the ministry sustainable? And if they are, can you tell him any success story? Is that your question?
Okay. So there are successes, definitely. Our development partners have successes. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, if you go to some of the arid areas, you can see lifestyle changes. Pastoralists who are now conserving pasture. That is a lifestyle change, and it's coming out well. What I can promise you is that this also, I have a comparative advantage in this, is that I will engage the development partners so that we look at how can we align whatever they are doing in the sector with the priorities in the sector, because that is important. I know sometimes there is a mismatch, and there can be mismatch, but I'm sure we can be able to do that. Red meat.
Daktari, the reason why I raised that question is because of where you are coming from. You still remain a consultant with World Bank, the European Union, and whatever global fund that is there, because you are on their list of those experts who are there. Those programs, when they are being implemented through NGOs, not communities, not leaders. So as leaders and people's representatives, we are seeing that Kenya is losing money, and that must stop.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the point is well noted, and what I can promise the honourable member Lasso is that given my knowledge in that area, I will make sure that community involvement, and you know it's a constitutional requirement these days that we get participation and community involvement so that we maximize the benefits to the communities and where they're coming from, so that we don't just have a project or a program which is Nairobi based. It should be coming from the grassroots. Livestock, yes.
Speaker, if you allow me to interject, just on the matter of donor-funded programs, Honourable Nominee, you see, some of these donors come into this country and they become like a joke. And I'll explain to you. Haifa International is one of those big guys, and I can see they're back in Kenya. I saw them on TV yesterday. But Haifa International, so they tell you, you take people for training 3 weeks. My mother actually went for training for Haifa, you know, 3 weeks, and they're being trained every day. They leave everything else productively. They go and train. Then at the end of that training, they give them one goat, a goat, one, whose value, no, but they also do goat. It's just called Haifa, but they also goat. So they give them only one goat, and they continue to train them. a goat which is valued around 4,000 shillings, but they spend so much money that would have been more productive, but they end up with only one goat, and they're told you have to wait for it to give birth so that you give it to the neighbor. Then if that one gives birth, then it gives it to the neighbor, and they think that it's creating wealth. We need to stop to be a subsistent country. You only want people to subsist through donor funding instead of growing wealth. I don't know how you're going to bring this concept that we need to grow wealth in agriculture instead of agriculture for subsistence. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I'm seeking your direction because a number of us have not gotten a chance to interrogate the nominee, but I can see a lot of interjection from the previous question.
We are almost getting to you.
Yes, but I just wanted the bad manners to stop because we also...
Yes.
Yeah, let it come. Order, Chair. Wait, I'm on the point of order, sir. I'm on a point of order. Let it become at the tail end after everybody has had an opportunity.
But a correction, an intervention is not bad manners. Can you withdraw that?
Unparliamentary.
Withdraw and apologize.
Yes. Yes, those who have had a go resist the temptation to intervene so that others can also have an opportunity. Yes, Daktari?
Yes, thank you.
So far, so good.
Yeah, so far, so good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the point made by honorable members about the donors, that's why I said we need to realign with our priorities. That's the point. If we are talking about value chains, why should we be talking about other things? So I think that is, if I am approved, is one of the areas which we will engage our development partners so that we align with our priorities, the government priorities and community priorities, so that we move forward. Livestock, beef. Honorable Raso talked about livestock and lead meat. Yes, these are very important. If I have created the impression that it is not, that I have not taken care of it, it is not intentional. Because red meat is actually one of the priority areas. And we have to deal with the issues which are making us not maximize, as I was saying, for instance, the weight, the breeds, disease control, so that this sector can be able to grow and be able to even actually export the animals and the meat. Serve all Kenyans. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, sir, and honorable members, I'm a Kenyan and I will serve all Kenyans. I don't have to be beholden by any maybe where I come from. I will serve all Kenyans. Agriculture is widespread. It comes from the coast to the shores of Lake Victoria, western, eastern. Anywhere you go, it's agriculture and livestock development. So I have to serve all Kenyans.
Sharia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to do a follow-up on this issue of the donor-funded and the World Bank. But mine is coming from a different angle, and most of these projects that are done through the World Bank, they normally tend to collapse at the end of the program and often add the debt burden to our country. How are you going to ensure that these World Bank donor-funded programs and projects and address the fundamental development issues in the country to ensure value for citizens who have to repay or carry the debt burden of the nation? Question number two. Pastoralism, as you said, is a key economic activity in ASAL, areas covering about 80% of Kenya and supporting a third of the population, and holds 70% of the national livestock, faces significant challenges. How do you plan to address, or what measures would you put in place to improve productivity in this sector if approved? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Let's take Honorable Mishimbogo.
Thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, the talk of the day is about fake fertilizer, but you are forgetting that we also had fake sugar, or rather poisonous sugar. I remember during the last regime, there was the scandal on poisonous sugar, whereby a large consignment of sugar found its way into Kenya and in several godowns. Our question is, what is the safety of Kenyans in terms of consuming poisonous food products such as sugar? And Honorable Chairman, I know these people are cartels, and they're the same cartels who are sabotaging revival of sugar industry. So when you are confirmed to this docket, how are you going to deal with the sugar cartel? Because this sugar cartel is big, and these people, they have what we call godfathers. They are protected with godfathers. And that is why today the sugar industry is not doing very well the way it's supposed to do. We need to do some intervention on that, and let Kenyans hear what you are going to do. My second question, Honorable Chairman, it is about how do we improve in terms of agriculture. I'm looking at the challenges, and one of the challenges is about land. But today, we have vast land in northern, eastern, or rather, ASAL areas. I'm wondering why, for many years, over 50 years from independence, that up to today, we have not done intervention in terms of having new agricultural technologies. We can maybe borrow from countries like Israel, where a bigger part of it is desert, and yet today is a big exporter of fresh produce. What intervention or what measures do you have in place to ensure, as a way forward, we are going to utilize the vast land in northeastern or rather ASAL areas so that we are food sufficient in this country? This narrative of saying each and every time that we need to be food sufficient, and yet there are no intervention done. Today, in the same areas, we can have flood. And there's a lot of water, but do we harvest that water? In Tana River today, we have floods. In Budalangi, we have flood. But again, we'll have drought. So how are we balancing that to ensure that we are food sufficient in this country? I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Mukami.
Thank you, Chair. Our nominee, my question is regarding new KCC. We have a serious issues in new KCC because the government has been pumping billions of money, and yet the company is not able to sustain itself. If you compare new KCC with Wakulima Dairy in Nyeri or Githunguri Dairy, they are able to pay their farmers within a month. But new KCC, the farmers normally get their payment after 120 days. Like this financial year, the new KCC has made a loss of 1.4 billion. So I want to know, if you happen to get this chance, what are you going to do to make sure that the government is getting value of money? Thank you.
Yes, Dr. can you answer those?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, Honorable Surrey. Donor funding. I think the big issue here is about sustainability, because when they come, the donor, the World Bank, and other donors come and they do a project, then they leave, then you are left with no sustainability. And one of the reasons why there is no sustainability is because how can you ensure sustainability? If you ask, I'll do that. I will say that one is to have institutions and empowerment of institutions, especially the communities. For instance, you do a water project, an irrigation project. If you don't empower the community to take care of that irrigation project, it will collapse. It will collapse. So we need to inculcate the issue about community participation so that communities are able to participate. Counties are the custodians of communities, especially down there. But most of the time you find a project which comes and the county is not quite engaged. So if I get the nomination, is to ensure that all programs which are coming and being designed, they have sustainability becomes a key plank of them. How do they sustain whatever they are doing? Be it because one of the sustainability is to ensure that whatever you are doing can be economically viable, that you can continue as a, but the others is to the communities, is through counties. Make sure that the counties and the communities have the capacity to take care of what has been invested on. Livestock productivity, I'm sure we have talked about this in terms of making sure that the breeds are there. Disease control is well taken care of. And when I talk about livestock here, I'm talking about both sides, the dairy side and the red meat, especially in the assals. So that, and I talked about even the feed rots, so that you intervene and make sure that we have the right weights for export. Honorable Missy, fake fertilizer, sugar, cartel. When you look at the sugar industry, it has been, we have a deficit of sugar, and that's why the problem starts. We have a big deficit of sugar, ranging, depending on the production, ranging from 300 to 500 metric tons. And this is a lot of sugar, which have to be imported through the COMESA and other safeguards which are there. So the cartels, we always thrive when our production is not meeting our demand. So one of the measures to actually talk about the sugar industry is what do you need to do in order for you to improve on production. You close the gap so that you are able to manage the quantities which are coming into the country. And definitely there will always be some kind of imports. The issue is about how do you allocate these importation quotas. And the best method is always to be an open method. I know that is maybe challenging in one way or the other, but I'll try as much as possible, if I get approved, to have a competitive method of allocating this, so that the cartels, even if one of the ways of dealing with the cartels is opening the information, transparency. Yes, so that you get that. Vast runs in, yes, it is there, especially in assals. 70%, almost 70% of our land is in assals. Vast land. It is used. Some of it is used in livestock and other engagements. But the major measure here is what are you doing to make the land more productive? And that is why I was talking about working with irrigation, working with introducing the right technologies so that they are able to do. Getting technologies and also getting examples from other countries like Israel. So if I get approved, definitely this is a resource which I would like to look into, the vast land in Assal and how it can be done, especially on red meat. Honorable Mukami, New KCC. New KCC happened to be in cooperatives because these are cooperative, and what I can say, it affects agriculture because the farmers are dairy farmers. But the management of KCC is a cooperative. So what I can say is that I engage and very severely on that with my counterpart in cooperatives to look at ways of making sure those issues, management issues, are sorted out, especially farmer payments, because you cannot have payments which are delayed for 6 months, while others are getting, like Wakulima and Kilongoli and others are paying on time. So this is one of the interministerial collaboration which I have to seek if I get approved.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, virtually all members of parliament represent farmers, and even those who represent urban areas, somehow their constituency interact with farmers in one way or another. And Mr. Speaker, I want to give you, because I come from a constituency that is taught as the bread basket of the Republic, though there's no bread in the basket, but it's the most highly agricultural constituencies and arable land. And I'll give you a story, when a nominee. I have one of the large-scale farmers, the few are left because of land fragmentation that has taken place, but the few who are left in Kitale. I interacted with a farmer who did maize for a long time. He left, started doing sugarcane. He left, started doing sunflower. He left and went to avocado. Now I asked him, can I start supplying mushroom because that's where you are going next? He said, no. I want you to help me do gated communities. Gated communities in a rural area. It's basically people are running away from agriculture. And Mr. Speaker, this is a topic that is so dear because this is directly to the lives of the people. There are success stories across the world. Brazil has done very well in value addition. India, Indonesia, this product called Indomie that is all over the country. Indomie is an Indonesian product, and it's from agricultural products. Do you have a success story that you are going to use to revitalize this ministry? Because it cannot just be stories around. Can you say, this has happened here, and this is how I want to interlink with our country? And then lastly, Speaker, and I hate to repeat, but allow me to repeat on this issue of cartels, because where cartels in agriculture has been misunderstood to mean that there are people you walk in the Ministry of Agriculture and they start firing them. No, it is a convoluted system. In fact, you may find the cartels in agriculture, they're not even Kenyans. There are billionaires of this world. Now, if you just say, I'm walking in to fight cartels, to me, Mr. Speaker, looks like a movie. It's not an adequate enough to convince Kenya that anything is going to happen. I'll give you an example of our collapsed sugarcane. It is full cartelism. If we sit here and ask you that if after 100 days of you being in the office, are we going to see smoke bellowing out of Mumia's sugar, out of Zoya sugar? Can you promise now? And we'll be here to interrogate. Thank you, Speaker.
Daktari.
Thank you, Honorable Hamisi. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Yes, the success stories, we need not to reinvent the wheel. We need to see which countries, agricultural countries has successes, and it's good that Honorable Hamisi have pointed out some of the success stories like Brazil. For instance, the sugar we are talking about, Brazil is very successful in sugar. We talk about dairy. India is very successful in dairy. So we need to learn from no inventing the wheel. And as a principle, if I'm approved, is to say that I'll promote that as a principle, that let's learn from the best. Let's learn from the best. Cartels. This is a major issue, yes. But when you look at cartel, you realize that where cartels thrive is where public interest is compromised. Because if you are compromising public interest, the public interest, for instance, for sugar, is to have sugar producers, especially in Western Kenya and coast, to have their sugar factories operating. If there is a deficit, then we import with at the least cost, so that the consumers also benefit. So it's also a moral question and an integrity question that we need to, as a nominee, and if I get approved, where I'm saying I will fight cartels is that I will do whatever it takes to promote public interest and use the state agencies which are there, which can help me to promote public good and the public interest. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Dr. Let me ask you 2 or 3 questions.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, I ask if there will be smoke billowing out of Mumias in 100 days. He has not said.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, thank you, Mr. Honorable Hamisi. I know there is a program for leasing for those factories which is ongoing, which has been initiated, and I know there's a process. I have to check what stage they are in, but I'm definitely going to. Sugar is one of the major subsectors. We will look at it and see how we can move it very fast forward.
Mr. Speaker, just one from Mama Mboga. I've just received a text. They are requesting and they are asking to hear from you as a cabinet for agriculture. What plans do you have?
It's not, it's just a nominee.
Yes, a nominee.
Yes.
What plans will you have if you are nominated on perishable goods like tomatoes, sukuma wiki, cabbage, in their market at the local end-tail market?
Yes, Murugara.
Just let's combine this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let's combine this with the great people of Meru and Embu. The crop they have, the cash crop called Mira. We've not spoken about this. Mira has a lot of issues because in our statute books, it's a lawful crop, and we can't take that away from them. In the neighboring countries like Tanzania, they say it isn't a lawful crop and therefore you can't export it there. Recently, some counties in the country started saying, sorry, they don't welcome it there. It's not a crop, it's other things which they possibly were imagining. And at the end of the day, there is a bit of uncertainty regarding the crop Mira in the country. Now, what policies would you put in place to ensure that at least in the country, Mira, which is Mira and Muguka, which is a lawful crop, does not suffer the consequences it suffered recently? I am asking the nominee, not you.
Speaker, maybe just to supplement what the Honorable Mula is asking, the nominee could tell us, leveraging from your experience with the World Bank and other donor organizations, including the EU that you've worked with, how would you help to harness resources? Because what Honorable Mula is asking is critical. I know government, through the markets that are being developed, they have cold storage facilities for dealing with the perishable products like the tomatoes Honorable Mula is asking. But how would you leverage that to ensure that we even access more resources from the donor community in the local areas, not just the local markets, to have cold storage facilities around the farms, so that when farmers harvest their tomatoes and the price is bad, they can store them there to await for the value addition that you spoke to, that will benefit many of our young people. But also, you mentioned something that you worked on livestock insurance. I don't know whether you said you did that working with the EU or with the World Bank. And the President has already considered to the country one of the problems that his former cabinet had was a failure in communication. I don't know what you will do as, if approved as a cabinet secretary, to ensure that there is proper communication to Kenyans on that livestock insurance that you worked on in your consultancy life, to increase the uptake of this livestock insurance, because the uptake is still very low. Many farmers still lose their livestock during the drought and floods, but they don't know that there is such a product. And what would you do to communicate better to ensure there is better uptake of that product around the country?
Yes, Daktari, we're running out of time on you. Can you answer quickly those last interventions?
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. On perishability, I think the leader of majority has helped in that, saying that yes, there are programs which are run on markets. Definitely, we at the value chains, as we look at the value chains, definitely one of the interventions is to make sure that we minimize the post-harvest losses, because that is cuts across the board, tomatoes and perishables and even other crops. So minimizing post-harvest losses is a part of food security, because why do you spend a lot of money and time and then you lose it along the chain? So we will look at the programs which can be able to help with with the issues to do with the perishables. Mira Mogoka, I know there is a problem, there is an issue between the producing counties and the consuming counties. And what can happen? Yes, this one is a big issue, and as the incoming, if I'm approved, the issue is about dialogue. The two sides have to sit down and see how best to sort it out. And I'll be a good, if I come in as an CS, I will be an arbitrator. Yes.
Yes, Dr.
The other issue is about livestock insurance from the leader of majority and proper communication. Yes, if I am approved, I'll promote that insurance. I worked on this concept from the World Bank and the EU side. We need to promote it. But generally, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also like to say that there are many things which are happening in the ministry and the docket, but communication has not been good. So if I am approved, one of the areas I'm determined and I'm prepared to do is to improve on communication, so that the members of the public knows what is going on. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Let me ask you just 2-3 questions. Number one is just a follow-up. The sugar industry in particular and many other crops, you said you have been in the research sector as well. If you look around the country, research in our food and crop production is virtually dead. The sugar research, dead. Rice, coffee is limping, name it. Tell Kenyans and give them hope how you are going to revive the component of research to improve crop production. Number two, maize farmers. Our maize farmers are very hardworking. They suffer when they produce less. They suffer even more when they produce more because of market. What are you going to do in terms of policy intervention to create a proper marketing system and program for maize and other cereal farmers in the country? Did I hear you say you participated in the creation of AFA?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Are you aware that now, out of the outcry for the failure of AFA to manage the agricultural sector, it is being dismantled? There's been a Tea Act now, born out of AFA. There's a sugar bill coming to the end, born out of AFA. There's a request on my table for a maize bill, moving away from AFA. There's a pyrethrum bill moving out of AFA. And all this dismantling of AFA, does it point to your error of judgment in your previous engagement that you as a consultant advised and participated in amalgamating all agricultural activities into one humongous act that didn't work and is now crumbling?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On research, I think, let me say on the onset that this is research is a mandate of the national government, and I agree 100% with you. It has not been well in research. When you look at Karo, you look at coffee, you look at all the other sectors. And mainly, we have the capacity in terms of human resources. We have the infrastructure. Mainly, it is the issue about financing. And coming in, if I am approved as a cabinet secretary and coming from research, I will put my best foot forward, especially on the exchequer side, so that we convince the national treasury that agriculture research is very vital. If you don't have research, you don't have technologies. You don't have, so that we can get more resources going towards research, both in all the crops. Secondly is the issue about farmers' participation in research. If you look at coffee, tea, they used to have a foundation where I used to work. Farmers were very happy. They used to contribute very gracefully. But that has ended. So we have, if I am approved and I come back as a cabinet secretary, I have to look at how can we involve the farmers better in terms of management of research and their role in financing. Maize farmers. Yes, the maize farmers, the issue about marketing, system. We know the major player here is National Cereals and Produce Board, and the millers who participate in marketing of maize. So it's an area where the government has intervened in terms of giving the inputs, so the supply increases, but when it comes to mopping up, it has become a problem. Because one of the areas which the challenge there, Honorable Speaker and members, is that when you try to push the prices up, the consumers are losing. So there's a dilemma there. So it's an area which is dicey, and it requires careful consideration, and I'll give it my due attention. In terms of AFA, the original principle was okay, in that you try to, just like we have in energy, we have an energy regulatory authority. We wanted the same, and if you go to other countries, and honorable members have pointed out that in other countries we need to copy what is working. If you go to India, if you go to Brazil, they have one authority controlling a lot of agriculture activities. What is, and I'm convinced is, one of the issues which came through is the way it was amalgamated, it was the way it was structured, and the way it came out, in that we were not able to give due attention to all the commodities as they were supposed to be. The original idea was okay. It is the execution part which was challenging. And that is why you are finding everybody wanting to go back, because to their own original arrangements. Because in principle, honorable members, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, you would agree with me, it is more efficient to have one organization where you can have common services. But the feeling of the various stakeholders in various commodities is that they
Why
want to go
do you
back.
think it didn't work? And what are you going to do about it?
Well, it didn't work because the issues coming from various commodities, for instance, coffee, tea, amalgamation of other like sugar. We brought different commodities, different subsectors at different levels and there was no effort made to make sure that they are entering at almost at par. So, be it as may, if I'm approved, is to look at what is going on, to see what the stakeholders are saying, because we have to go with the stakeholders. If they say today we want tea, you cannot force them on alpha. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Jeanette.
Speaker, this is what one of the public members is saying. Dr. Andrew Muya Karanja, Ministry of Agriculture, CS nominee, says that we will always have sugar deficit, always. Is in there a government policy that will become we become self-sufficient across all sectors in agriculture? How can Eswatini, former Swaziland, which is smaller than Elgeyo Marakwet County, be one of the biggest sugar exporters in the world? Asian countries like Vietnam never had coffee, yet it's now one of the biggest coffee exporters in the world. Thailand took palm trees from Nigeria and is now one of the biggest palm tree producers in the world. Problem of Kenya is total absence of initiative to change the status quo. Why then be a Minister of Agriculture if you believe that you will always be importers of sugar? And the rest I don't want to say. Then he said, he told you, how can he actually say we will always be sugar importers? Nyanza province alone can produce more sugar than Eswatini or Sudan.
There are many others, Dr. is one asking, I'm a vet, the most neglected arm of agriculture is veterinary services. What are you going to do? And many others.
Sure, let me ask.
Yes, Mukami?
Yeah, there's another one. We have a weakness in the sale of coffee at NC, which allows the buyers to offer prices below the reserve price to force a negotiation with co-farmers outside the trading floor for 24 hours. These are practiced every auction day. What are you going to do about it?
You can respond to those.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. On Honorable Junet is to say, if I implied that we always have a deficit, that is not my intention. I was saying maybe for now, the situation we are in now is we have a deficit. But going forward, definitely, we will put measures to improve on productivity, the reforms in the sugar sector, which are undertaken, so that we become self-sufficient. I'm sure we can be able to get self-sufficiency. So if it was construed like that, then that is not what I meant. The issue about the coffee, the cartels, and the colluding in prices.
You already said you'll dismantle them.
Yeah, I'll dismantle them.
Yes. And improve on the veterinary. The
veterinary, yes, it is. I know I was briefed that Mr. Speaker, sir, that they are registered under many legal instruments. So we are going to, if I am approved, we are going to work with them to see that because they are very critical. Veterinary service is very critical, especially on the livestock side.
Thank you. And if in case we approve your nomination, don't be limited or curtailed by the boundary between the county governments and the national government, because you have a duty on formulating policy that helps this ministry, all its departments across the country, both at the national level and the county levels. I'll ask you a few minor questions, but none the less important. Dr. Karanja, have you ever been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir.
There is a man, Olonyango, who has written saying your conduct and integrity as a nominee is not good because you have faced one or multiple allegations of unethical behavior and participation in corrupt and illegal activities. Is it true?
Not
he has provided no evidence, but that's what he says.
That is not true, Mr. Mr. Speaker, sir, because yes. I have never participated in such kind of activity.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Within Kenya?
No, Mr. Speaker, sir.
What is your net worth?
My net worth is 214 million shillings.
Yes, made out of?
Made up of my residence, my family residences. Mm-hmm. We have apartments. I have vehicles. We have plots and land. I have deposits in a bank's account.
Okay. Yesterday, we had 5 candidates. We asked them many questions, ending with this minor question on their net worth. But the media only picked the net worth and forgot everything else. We want the media to be fair to both the candidates for appointment and the committee, because we are not here to evaluate the wealth of candidates. We are evaluating their suitability to hold public office to which they are nominated. Yes. Yes.
Just one thing, Honorable Chair. The last time when I was in the energy sector, KenGen came up with a policy. They wanted to start doing production of ammonia in Naivasha, which is a very big byproduct for production of fertilizer. Maybe Dr. Karanja can tell us whether, instead of, because the biggest chunk of our fertilizer is imported, and if we could be able to produce ammonia, which is a very, very big component in fertilizer production, then maybe that can go towards addressing most of the fertilizer issues. Thank you, Chair.
That's good information for you, Dr. Karanja. You can go with it, and we'll now release you. Go with your original documents after having been checked with what we have in our possession and found to be correct. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I would like to thank you and all the members for the good engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Agent, you can escort the nominee.
Mr. Speaker, on that issue of declaration of wealth, you know, since our media colleagues are here before the other nominee comes in, I know it's the newspapers that largely reported on it, which is okay, because it's part of the vetting process. But, you know, if these honorable members also here declared their wealth, there are others who are worth much more than that. Like my friend here, Junet, I know if he was to declare his wealth, having been a member of parliament and a businessman of many years.
Mr. Speaker, that is being malicious, Mr. Speaker, and he has been sent to finish me. Yeah, I don't know by who.
My only concern is that you asked the candidates many incisive questions, and the question of their worth was at the tail end of every interview. And even the candidates gave very clear explanations, like Soipan said, her growth is because of the appreciation of the assets that she had. And I believe it applied to everybody. But what we see in the headlines is totally different.
In fact, the Honorable Soipan said appreciation of land and a house she has acquired in Nairobi. And I think it's important for the public to also know all these cabinet secretaries once appointed into office, just like members of parliament, access mortgage facilities to buy a property in Nairobi if you didn't have one. Soipan has also been a member of parliament for 3 terms. So it's fair because maybe next time it will be, these members here will be here being vetted to appreciate that Honorable Mary Amase has been a member of parliament for 3 terms, whatever she is worth. And she also has other consultancy she does and other businesses.
What about me 6 terms?
No, we will only question what you will own if you are to declare here.
Mr. Speaker, on the same breath, even Honorable Soipan went ahead and declared even the loans. And if you look at her declaration, she has a loan of 49 million shillings, which is not yet paid and removed from the net worth. So we need to be sensitive on some of these.
Speaker, yes, Chairman. Honorable Speaker, I just said I think it's also important for members of the media to understand that the fact that you own properties or your net worth is high is not a disqualification, or it does not make you unsuitable. And the fact that you declare your wealth is not for use now, but for use in future. If, let's say, your wealth that you declared at the time of entering office, if there is alleged corruption against you, that is used to assess whether you legally acquired the property while in office. So it's not for use now. Similarly, the wealth declaration form, the wealth declaration form and the self-declaration form that is deposited at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Authority, I know that the EACC have spoken in the media the day before yesterday and said that they clear candidates. EACC has no authority whatsoever in law to clear anyone. They can only investigate you for corruption. So the self-declaration form is for custody by EACC for future investigation should they be necessary. Similarly, the wealth declaration form that public servants leave with their employees is for use only at the time that you're being investigated and they have received a court order asking for the wealth declaration form. So it's important that the media get the facts right. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, let me explain this. Mr. Speaker, there is no harm in somebody being rich. And there is no harm, it is not a crime in somebody being poor. But what I think people expect is just a proper explanation on how, when you declare this is my wealth, what is the source, what is it? The question that has come up is, let's say you have worked for 30 years and you made a wealth of 400 million. And you have worked for 2 years and you have made a wealth of 150 million. So that's the comparison that they are looking at. If you explain how you made that 150, there is no harm, Mr. Speaker. Richness is not a crime, as you say. I agree with you. And poor is dangerous.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this is not even new. When we did the vetting last time, all headlines talked about the billions and the hundreds of millions that the nominees were worth. So I think it's something that maybe the media feels can sell. And because of freedom of media, we can allow them to report it the way they see it.
Curtailing their freedom at all.
Mr. Speaker, I'm aware that Ishungwa is worth 5 billion as of now.
Why are you understating him?
Honorable Speaker, I was wondering why he's understating him.
Why are you understating him? Can we break for 10 minutes?